On a busy morning at the university, hundreds of students filled the campus pathways. Some walked with friends, some laughed. Some rushed to class, and then there was Jude, 19 years old, tall, quiet, always alone. While everybody else seemed to belong somewhere, Jude felt like a visitor in his own life. Everywhere he looked, people were talking, sharing jokes, making memories, things that seemed effortless for everyone, except him. A classmate noticed him and wept. "Jude!" For a second, Jude considered responding, but the familiar fear returned, the fear of saying the wrong thing, the fear of embarrassment. So he looked away and kept walking. People often assumed Jude was rude. The truth was much simpler. He was scared. Every conversation felt like standing on a stage without knowing the script. Just as he reached the faculty building, his phone vibrated. A text message, "David, an acquaintance he met a while back while registration. You coming to class?" Jude couldn't help smiling. David was one of the few people who never made him feel strange. One of the few people who understood him. A few minutes later, Jude entered the lecture hall. The room buzzed with energy. Students filled nearly every seat. As usual, he searched for a quiet corner, somewhere he could disappear. Somewhere nobody would notice him. Then the classroom door opened. A girl walked in, carrying a stack of books. Her name was Vera. Bright smile, confident energy, the type of person who could make an entire room feel lighter. To Jude's surprise, she walked straight toward him and sat down beside him. Jude froze. His heart immediately started racing. Vera smiled warmly. "Hi." Jude stared for a second before replying, "Hi." And without realizing it, that single word changed everything. For the rest of the lecture, Jude struggled to concentrate. He couldn't stop wondering why Vera had chosen to sit beside him. Every time she looked his way, he felt his pulse speed up. Nobody ever paid this much attention to him. When the class ended, Vera turned toward him. "I'm Vera." Jude opened his mouth. Nothing came out. For a moment, he forgot how conversations worked. Finally, he managed a response. "Jude." Vera laughed softly, not in a cruel way, not in a mocking way, just enough to make him relax. To Jude's surprise, he found himself smiling. The lecturer began speaking again, but neither of them seemed interested. Their attention kept drifting back to each other. Several times, Jude caught himself looking at Vera. And every time she noticed, she smiled. A simple smile, but for Jude, it felt like sunlight after a very long storm. The next morning, Jude arrived earlier than usual. Much earlier. Every few seconds, he glanced towards the classroom door, waiting. Then Vera appeared, walking through the entrance with the same bright smile. Without thinking, Jude smiled back. She sat beside him, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Soon they were talking before class, about lectures, assignments, life, anything and everything. For the first time in years, Jude laughed freely. And Vera couldn't help smiling. She was watching someone slowly come out of his shell. Across the room, David noticed. He smiled to himself. Everything seemed to be working. That afternoon, Jude left class happier than he could remember being. For the first time, university no longer felt lonely. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into a routine. Jude and Vera spent more time together, walking across campus, sharing stories, laughing about things nobody else would understand. Somewhere along the way, Jude made a very dangerous mistake. He fell in love. David occasionally watched from a distance, happy to see his friend changing, happy to see him becoming more confident. One evening, as the sun disappeared behind the campus buildings, Jude headed back toward the hostel. That's when he heard familiar voices, Vera and David. He stopped, hidden behind a wall, listening. "You really helped him," David said. Vera nodded. "At first, I only talked to him because you asked me to." Boom! My chest. The walls hit Jude like a punch. His chest tightened. His stomach dropped. Every happy memory suddenly felt different. Before either of them noticed him, Jude stepped away from the wall. The night suddenly felt colder. The campus suddenly felt emptier. And as he walked away, only one thought echoed through his mind. "So that's why she talked to me." For the first time since meeting Vera, Jude felt completely alone again. The next morning, Jude walked into class alone. Not because there was no empty seats, but because he didn't want to sit beside Vera anymore. Vera entered the classroom moments later. She smiled when she saw him, but the smile slowly disappeared. Jude wouldn't even look at her. After class, Vera hurried after him. "Jude, please wait." He kept walking, as though he hadn't heard her. She finally caught up with him. "Can we talk?" Jude stopped for a second, but his silence spoke louder than words. "What you heard wasn't the whole story," Vera said softly. Jude looked away. He wasn't ready to believe anything anymore. "You only became my friend because David asked you to," Jude said calmly. But every word carried pain. "I was just someone else's charity project." Vera lowered her head. She couldn't deny how everything had started. She wiped away a tear because for the first time, she realized she had hurt the one person she never wanted to lose. Jude walked away, leaving Vera standing alone beneath the evening sun. She watched him disappear into the crowd, unable to stop him. That evening, Jude sat alone inside his room, thinking, wondering if every smile, every laugh, every memory had all been fake. Back in her room, Vera couldn't stop crying. She replayed every moment they had shared. Somewhere along the way, helping Jude had become loving Jude. And now she feared she had lost him forever. The next morning, Vera arrived before everyone else. She stood outside the lecture hall, waiting, hoping, praying that Jude would give her one chance to explain. A few minutes later, Jude appeared. He stopped when he saw her. Neither of them spoke. The silence carried everything worse, couldn't? Finally, Vera took a deep breath. "Please, just give me 5 minutes." After a long pause, Jude nodded. She told him everything. "Yes, David asked me to become your friend." She looked into his eyes, but somewhere along the way, stopped being an act. Tears rolled down her face. I stayed because I wanted to. I laughed because she made me laugh. I smiled because being with you made me happy. Jude, I love you. Just then, David walked over. This is my fault, he admitted. I only wanted to help my best friend. I never imagined you two could actually fall for each other. He looked at Jude. If you are angry, be angry with me. For the first time in days, Jude smiled, only a little. But it was enough for Vera to believe there was still hope. Relief washed over Vera's face. The tears didn't stop, but this time, they weren't tears of heartbreak. They were tears of hope. Together, Jude and Vera began walking across campus once again. Not because every wound had healed, but because some people are worth forgiving, and some stories deserve a second chapter. As they disappeared into the crowd of students, the lonely boy who once walked through campus by himself was no longer alone. Sometimes the people who enter our lives for the wrong reasons end up becoming the right people to stay. The end.